All right.
Okay.
Back, everybody. This is our first time live streaming
Yes, live streaming the ReVitalized Podcast.
ReVitalized Podcast.
I'm very, very excited to do this. This is something really cool. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's just going to be really great to have more information readily available, to anyone, because Jess and I, we really, really strongly believe that health is a human right and everyone should have access to it.
This show is brought to you by our generous donors. Everyone who's supporting us, who's given, and just making the show possible. So thank you all so much. We appreciate you guys. So in this episode, we're going to talk about hydration. We're going to talk about water because it is an incredibly important part of health, how a person can get healthy. And you're either going to be hydrated or dehydrated. And if you're dehydrated, it's incredibly impossible to even remotely get healthy. And if you are hydrated, you can not outlast a bad diet or a bad training program, but like you can definitely, I would personally rather eat bad and be hydrated than be dehydrated and eat perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
My body will be much healthier.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, why don't we get into it, babe?
All right.
And basically, talk all about water. When you start us off?
We're going to talk about water. I did start us off. What do you mean? I opened up the whole thing.
Okay, no, more like the whole.
All right. So, water. Okay.
Water
It is the source of all life on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the single most important nutrient in our bodies, period. A lot of people don't know that. Water is actually a nutrient.
Yes,
it's not just proteins and fats and carbs and vitamins and minerals. Water is a nutrient.
It is very nourishing.
It is, in fact,
to your
the
body.
most important nutrient.
Mm-hmm.
Water makes up the large majority of our internal environment. We're going to go into that a little bit deeper today, what that actually means, which is all of the extracellular fluids in our body. And homeostasis is the state of optimal health when that internal environment is in perfect condition. So if you guys don't know what homeostasis is, you're going to learn today. First of all, you're going to learn today. Second of all, homeostasis is your body being in optimal health when your internal environment is in perfect condition. The internal environment is the extracellular fluids in your body, and it is primarily made up of water. Chronic dehydration is affecting at least 70% of North Americans that we know of, and dehydration can be linked to 28 different conditions. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
To sum this all up, how much water we drink matters. The quality of our water matters even more, and being hydrated is essential for human health. And the impact of dehydration on our body and mind cannot be underestimated.
Absolutely. And we've collected over 75 different very popular symptoms that are directly associated with dehydration.
Totally.
And I wanted to go over with you guys. I can go through that if you'd like, but okay, sure. There's that, and then there's also some of the stats around it too. I'll give you guys just a few of them, okay?
Yep.
So dehydration symptoms, okay? So fatigue, constipation, inflammation, muscle cramps, poor sleep, poor memory, digestive issues, sunken eyes, joint pain, anxiety, increased heart rate, unclear thinking, migraines, heartburn, hormone imbalances, a weak immune system, premature wrinkles, weak bones, shortness of breath, low sex drive, stomach aches, fainting, impaired mental focus, and so much more. And I'll give you guys some of the stats on it.
So hold on a second. Before we go into stats,
okay. That's not even all 75. I just randomly went through that list.
But that's just crazy because we were talking about this I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago with somebody. She was sharing with us how she was working with this doctor, and this doctor was really, really good with nutrition. That's what she said. And so we're asking some questions about like the nutrition plan. What are some of the principles he taught you? Do you understand this concept? Do you know what types of foods are good to get this nutrient? Like just trying to figure out what diet plan she was following. Because she wanted to join the academy, but we needed to know what she had done to kind of know where to start with her. And this guy did not teach her anything at all about water, and he was supposed to be a nutritionist. And like we just talked about, and we can go deeper into it later, but water, it's the single most important nutrient. So nutritionists, diet plans, like if they're not including water, it's not a complete diet plan. It's just a macro calorie plan, most likely. That's crazy. And if not having enough water, if being deficient in water as a nutrient can cause all these symptoms, Why are not more people talking about it?
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. We've known this forever.
Mhm. It's really, really unfortunate, and I think it's just, like, something that is, free or, I mean, today, the free water is so great, it's not really free because it costs you, in the
No
long
kidding.
run, that's for sure.
No kidding.
But, you know, it's not as marketable, right, as some other things perhaps.
Mm.
And it's really unfortunate too because it's like even order to like even like let's say that nutritionist gave um that lady the most perfect diet plan, right? If you're not hydrated, you're not going to be able to absorb nutrients and break down food very well.
Has anybody heard of water-soluble vitamins? Water-soluble
Mm.
nutrients? Water-soluble means that they break down, they dissolve and absorb in water. So you need water to break down food. If you're dehydrated, your food will not digest properly and you won't get all the benefit, all the value from the food that you could be. And so if you're dehydrated, you could literally be wasting money spending more on expensive groceries and fancy foods and clean foods and things like that. And that's great. But if your body can't digest what you're eating,
Yeah, it's a waste of energy and time and money and
like the
like
point of food is not just to eat it. It's supposed to get nutrient value from it.
exactly. It's supposed to add to your life, not take away. It's supposed to, increase your resources, not decrease your resources in
Absolutely.
your body. And nutrients have to be hydrolyzed. Like they have to be broken down. Water is so, so, so important. And, that's why Justin and I talk about it so much. And I think it's like we end up talking about the things that most people don't talk about. And which is a little unfortunate because a lot of the things we talk about, the things that are like,
They should be talked
they should be talked about mostly. But anyways, so go through some of these stats. So dehydration. So as Justin was saying a little bit earlier, around like over 70% of North Americans are chronically dehydrated, right? So day to day,
Right.
today, they didn't just have, someone didn't just have a bad day and they didn't get enough water because of their schedule. Like literally all the time, they're dehydrated.
And that's not like people just get dehydrated when they're running a marathon.
Yeah.
They get dehydrated when it's hot out. Chronic dehydration means that it's been going on for a long period of time. So it's not just like an on-off thing. That is a consistent level of dehydration.
Yeah, they're literally not drinking enough water. And on top of that, too, there's also an element where you're not absorbing your water as well. So we'll go deeper into the context behind that. But basically, dehydration in general, right, regardless of the cause, can reduce pain threshold by up to 15%. It can cause a 20% decrease in reaction time. So imagine you're like in a car accident or, you're in a dangerous situation, decreasing your reaction time can really mean in certain situations life or death.
Yeah.
And
20% is a lot.
20% is a lot. And that's something from as simple as not being hydrated. And being hydrated isn't a complicated thing. It's really not,
Super easy.
It can also reduce problem solving abilities by up to 12%. Granted, they didn't say exactly how much you have to be dehydrated for this to occur. But for example, if you even have 1 to 2% in dehydrated, it immediately starts affecting your brain, like your cognitive abilities. This is something
volume.
Yep.
Which, if you guys know anything about brain health, the volume of the gray matter, of the white matter, of the actual tissue that makes up your brain is super critical to how your brain functions.
Yeah, exactly. You need brain to brain, right?
You brain to brain, maybe.
And water is one of the most important elements to that.
Well, the brain's only 85% water.
Oh, well, I mean, come on. Like, on top of this, too, dehydration can increase the risk of heart stroke by 70%. It can increase the risk of pressure of ulcers in bedridden patients by 50%. It can also increase the risk of falls in older adults by 40%. The risk of urinary tract infections by 30%. Can reduce blood volume by up to 16%. That's huge.
Humongous.
That's really
blood is mildly important.
Yeah.
If you're not quite sure how important blood is, lose a couple pints of it, see how you feel.
Like there's life in the blood.
We need blood.
Yeah.
To do anything. And it's so much deeper we could go into this, but one of the main causes, one of the main things that we see happen with almost all human sickness is lack of blood flow to an organ or tissue, and then that's when disease starts to spread. It's very, very hard for disease to manifest if there was not first some sort of circulation issue that led to that. And so if the volume in your blood is going down by 16%, that's going to restrict circulation. That's going to cause some issues with movement inside the body. And if you listen to this at all, you'll know that movement is a very, very important thing internally and externally. But if circulation and lack of blood flow to an organ can be linked to basically all diseases and sicknesses that we're even aware of, and your blood volume can get reduced by 16% when you're dehydrated, like that's, people think like 16% is like, oh, well, yeah, but I still have like 84% left. That's the wrong way to look at it, pal. 16% of blood volume is a big number.
And on top of that too, like how much more does it affect the blood the further a person becomes dehydrated?
Exactly.
More and more and more. Blood plasma is 99% water.
And the blood plasma is all the fluid your blood cells are floating in. So a very important thing. Moral of the story, if something's affecting your blood and your brain and your heart and your immune system and
your mental health
and your aches and pains, like it's something that should definitely be looked at and learned.
It literally affects every single area of your life. And, so many people just are like, oh, water's water. I'll drink a liter next week, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a really big deal, and people are suffering when they really do not have to be. 90% of kidney function depends on adequate hydration.
Come again?
90% of kidney 90% of kidney function.
90%, not 89%.
Yeah.
90%.
90%.
If we flip that around, that means 10% of your kidneys is not vitally dependent on water. That's pretty important. If we're 90% dependent on anything, we need that thing a lot.
Yeah. And again, depends on adequate hydration.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, because, so dehydration can also reduce blood flow to the brain by up to 10%. Which is actually, it depends on how far a person is dehydrated, because these things will only increase. So this is a really big deal. And on top of this too, 80% of chronic fatigue syndrome patients show signs of dehydration, and 80%, and that makes perfect sense. And if anything, I think that level, that stat should actually be even higher, because the first sign of dehydration is actually mental fatigue. If you have mental fatigue, you're eventually going to have physical fatigue.
Exactly.
So, obviously water is not the end all be all. Being hydrated is not going to completely resolve any symptoms you're having or something like this, but it is one of the biggest parts of the equation.
Not every symptom, but a lot of them.
But definitely a lot of them. We've seen so many people see the most tremendous reduction in symptoms simply from being hydrated.
Totally.
Like, and this isn't talked about, and this is ridiculous. And this is one of the reasons why, for example, in Japan, doctors are actually paid when their patients are healthy. And one of the things that they make a priority over there is if a patient isn't hydrated, then we'll make sure to focus on that first. Because when it comes to the body, if you're not hydrated, then it makes total sense that there's so many things going wrong.
Well, because everything's
we are literally mostly made of water. So if we don't have our water game where it needs to be, then why do you think there's so many issues going on?
Well, exactly. So, okay, why are so many people dehydrated today? Why is this such a big problem? Why have people not heard about this stuff before, learned about these things before? I mean, literally, I was talking with a woman in our program like today. She's a nurse, and she hasn't heard some of this stuff before. So like, if a nurse who went through years of medical schooling hasn't heard this stuff before, then like why is this not mass educated people? Doesn't make sense. And then not just that, but like, why is it even here in the first place? Well, one of the big issues is, first of all, water quality. Water quality has gone down tremendously in the last several decades. Our tap water is polluted. Our bottled water is mostly tap water that's been polluted. Most of our filtration systems that we have today, the really big popular ones like reverse osmosis or distilled water or reservoir filters, like the big ones that we see with the blue jugs all over the place, all the office buildings and stuff like that. Those filters, they change water too much in order for water to actually get absorbed into the body, which, by the way, we'll go into this as well, but water doesn't actually hydrate your body. Minerals hydrate your body with water. Minerals are what allow your body to absorb the water. The water is just the resource that your body is hydrating with, but it doesn't actually do any of the hydrating itself. So first of all, your body has to be equipped and prepared to hydrate properly, regardless of how much you drink. And most of the filters that we have today, most of the really big popular ones, RO, Distill, these reservoir filters, they take out most of these minerals, if not all of them, because they filter way too good. And yeah, we have to make sure that our water is pure. Can't have chlorine, can't have fluoride, can't have all these pesticides, and forever chemicals, and EDCs and VOCs and all this crazy stuff. Absolutely. But there are ways we can filter those things out without removing the electrolytes, without removing the calcium, the zinc, magnesium, the minerals that we need to actually hydrate properly. And if somebody is drinking a lot of water and doesn't know that they need minerals to hydrate from that water, they will probably be mineral deficient, because people are mineral deficient just all the time. Our food's been depleted. Our food quality has gone way down. The choices people use to eat from.
The pollution and the soil depletion, like it's just endless variables. Exactly. But this is our reality, right?
Exactly. So our water needs to be pure. It needs to have minerals in it. And most people's water today does not do that. And not to mention that, but also the electrostatic charge, the negative charge that's supposed to be in water, in fresh water from the earth, isn't here anymore, because we're not drinking water that just came out of the ground. We're drinking water that came out of the ground 6 months to a year ago and has been sitting in some plastic bottle or some giant water filtration plant waiting to get to your home and your tap. And so we're not drinking fresh water anymore. And fresh water is really important because it still has life left in it. You know, one of the concepts that we teach everybody and all of our clients, for example, is we get everybody on ionized water. Ionized water is super, it's an amazing technology. But it's really not that miraculous in the sense that all it's really doing is just bringing water back to how it used to be back in the day before we screwed stuff up. And before, like when fresh water was our only option, we couldn't store water for long periods of time. We couldn't pull water out of the earth and then take it to, some other country hundreds of miles away. Because the earth is a natural ionizer. It is constantly pumping out negative ions, right? Like that's why grounding works, And water in nature is supposed to be grounded. It's supposed to have a lot of electricity pumped into it and then held and bound to these ionic minerals, these electrolytes that we have. That's why they're called electrolytes, because they're minerals that hold on to electricity. And those electrons, that high negative charge, and the minerals are supposed to be in the water that we drink to then supply electricity and supply minerals to us. It's one of the reasons why water is a nutrient. And water today just does not have that anymore. That's why we're such big fans of ionized water, because it's a way that a modern person can get water that is electrically charged and loaded with minerals, as long as you're filtering it properly. And we've seen it do wonders. But water today is so far away from what nature intended, what God intended with nature, that people just aren't absorbing their water properly anymore because they're mineral deficient, doesn't have the right charge in it anymore. And so the water molecules are clumped together in these big, massive clusters. And then it takes a long time and a lot of energy from your body to absorb that water properly. And so people just aren't getting the water into their cells like they need to. It's just running right through them. Mm-hmm. It's a big problem all the time. And just the pollutants, the mass industry that water has become has totally changed it from what it used to be. And first of all, people just aren't taught this stuff in the first place. So they don't even know that they should be looking for alternatives. They don't even know they should be looking for different options. They don't even know how much water they should be drinking, or when they should be drinking water, or what kinds of water to drink, or that there even is a difference between different types of water. It's just, as long as it doesn't have dirt in it, then they're good to go. And that's just not true anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. That, and also like people think that you can drink any liquid and it will suffice towards your daily water intake.
Yeah.
This is not the reality. Now, don't get me wrong. There's certain things you can drink, and maybe it has minerals in it and this and that, and it can aid in hydration to a certain degree, right? Because it's supplying, like, let's say, for example, the broth we had before the live today. It's full of nutrients.
Exactly.
It has minerals in it. And we need minerals for a lot of different functions in the body, including actually absorbing water properly. But the reality is like, in order to actually be hydrated and your daily water intake has to be just water. You don't want to add anything to it because your body recognizes things differently. For example, when you drink just water, your body is not going to want to put, a bunch of stomach acid into, of course, the stomach after, you drink a glass of water, right? Because it absorbs it. When you eat a burger, it has to put in the stomach acid, it has to go through a different process to break everything down. Water, like being a liquid, it's supposed to be at least already pure enough where it can be easily absorbed just through the stomach. And the problem is that people think that, if there's water in something, that will, again, like I said earlier, contribute to daily water intake, but it's not because your body's going to process it differently.
Well, not just that, but it's also not measurable.
Yeah.
It's not trackable. There's no way for a regular person to eat an orange and then be like, oh, well, actually, I absorbed this many ounces of moisture from that orange. We can't track that.
No.
But what we can track is how much water we drink. Everybody can measure that.
Yeah.
In ounces and liters and cups and bottles, whatever. And just because of how important water is and how important hydration is, measuring it and being accurate to make sure that we are replacing the water that we lose throughout the night. People don't really realize it's like you could lose liters just sleeping.
Yeah.
Water, breathing, sweating. Just throughout the night. Like this morning, for example, because I knew we were going to do this one today, I weighed myself right before bed. As soon as I got up first thing, I lost 3 pounds just in one night, just from sweating. It was a hot night.
I guess I think there's people watching this that are like, just like, you just slept and you lost 3 pounds.
Well,
I sleep and I gained 3 pounds.
But then I gained 3 pounds back as soon as
Exactly.
Right. So like
weight fluctuates, right?
Weight fluctuates a lot. But the point is just that dehydration, there's so many things that do dehydrate people.
Yeah.
And unless we know that we're accurately rehydrating properly, we're taking a look at our sodium, our potassium, our water amounts every day. And then we can't actually measure how hydrated we really are. We have to have these goals to aim for, these parameters in our lives to know, am I doing the right things? Am I doing enough of the right things? Because if you're not measuring something, you can't track its progress. You can't make it better. You can't improve it because you have no idea where you're even starting.
Yeah.
And so you will absorb water, you will hydrate from cucumbers, from oranges, from things that have liquid in them, but that's not measurable. We can't track that. So that's just extra on top of what you're already doing to maintain hydration. And having a little bit more water in your body than less is never a bad thing.
Yeah, you can just pee it out. Like,
exactly.
The thing is like, how you have to prepare food a certain way, right? You can't just eat raw beans. And they have to be cooked and this and that. It's the same thing with water. A lot of people, it's not with cooking, but I'll explain. A lot of people, for example, will say like, oh, well, water is bad because you have water soluble nutrients in you. And if you drink a bunch of water, then, you'll lose them. It'll strip your body of nutrients. Hold on a second. You have to drink water every day. You have to drink enough water every day. You also have to have a daily intake of enough sodium, potassium, and a bunch of other water soluble nutrients to not necessarily compensate for the water intake, but to make sure that your body has that daily supply of everything that it needs. One of those elements of having that daily supply is water. Do you want to go like a little bit more into, how your body processes like water differently than
just
food,
one thing.
please?
One thing I wanted to we talked about was acid, excess acid.
Yeah,
because that is something that people don't really realize, and it's one of these things we're talking about that really does dehydrate people a lot, and they have no clue. So, for example, a lot of bottled waters can be acidic.
Yes.
Even alkaline bottled water can be acidic.
Yeah,
it's not
alkaline.
It's not actually alkaline. They just put some alkaline stuff in it, so it tests alkaline. But it doesn't make a difference because I can put a bunch of baking soda in some Coca-Cola, and if I put enough baking soda in there, I can make Coke test 9.5 pH.
Yeah,
and
so
like,
in other words,
Coke's alkaline. It must
they're
be.
a bunch of liars.
Exactly. But that has no bearing on how that liquid or that fluid or those substances in there is going to affect your pH, which is the main reason why somebody would want to eat alkaline foods, eat alkaline water, and eat alkaline water, drink alkaline water.
Yeah, because your body keeps the correct pH balance, but you have to also have that, daily intake of.
Make it easier or harder on your body to do that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And when we're skewing more to the acid side with our lifestyle, we're eating more processed foods, we're drinking sodas, we're drinking carbonated
We're having more negative thinking.
we're having more negative thinking. All these things can lower pH levels in certain parts of the body, or produce extra acid, or you're just consuming acid every time you drink a soda pop, every time you eat a burger, every time you're having some food that was processed with fake ingredients, and it's just ultra processed food. Those things produce acid in the body because they're cheap and because they're made with acidic chemicals, and they get broken down and digested in ways that use up a lot more acid in the body. So you have to create more, you get exposed to more, you consume more, and then all these things lead to your body having to overcompensate and pull alkalizing minerals from your bones, alkalizing minerals from your tissues. It has to go through all these different buffers that the body has in order to neutralize that acid, stop it from hurting you, because acid is not a good thing when it gets in excess.
No, definitely not.
And then over time, you are getting more depleted of minerals. We just went over how important minerals were for hydration. So people can be drinking enough water and eating lots of minerals, but they're not replacing the deficit. So we talk about a concept called your health bank a lot. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that people need to realize is every time you do something good for your health, you're making a deposit. Every time you do something bad for your health, you're making a withdrawal. And a lot of the time, what people don't realize is when they start making positive life choices and they start going down a more holistic approach, they start changing their diet, their exercising, sleeping better, all these things are great. And that's good to make deposits now.
Yeah.
But we're not paying off the debt of all these withdrawals that were being made in the past. Mm-hmm. We have to address that. We can't just ignore the debt. The debt will catch up to us in our body. It will lead to some kind of a condition. It will lead to fatigue. It will lead to pain. It will lead to excess weight. It will lead to something.
Like it'll lead to extreme cases, like if you're dealing with a bank and you have an overload of debt, what happens to your house?
Oh, exactly.
Foreclosure. This is our home.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so acid and getting exposed to excess acid and just learning how our body deals with excess acid and what things we can do to help combat that. It's not that you drinking ionized water is going to change your blood pH. Your body does that already. But what it will definitely do is it will help your body to manage pH easier, because you have an outside substance going in that can neutralize acid that's been built up in your body from other things, from stress, from food, from drinks, from whatever. And so your body doesn't have to rob itself of its own nutrients to then do that same job. Right. And so pH levels and excess acid are a big thing that dehydrate a lot of people, because when that happens and you get depleted, eventually you can't really hydrate properly, even if you're drinking amazing water, until you replace those minerals that have been leached from your body to deal with those excess acid levels. You're going to have a really hard time.
Absolutely. So that's basically on, part of the reason why everyone is so dehydrated.
And the fact they're not even drinking enough. Almost everybody we talk to is like, I don't drink enough water.
Yeah.
You know that, and you're doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like water. Well, it's because you're drinking tap water that tastes like garbage, bottled water that blows the crap out of you. Mm-hmm. And nobody's ever taught you about sodium or potassium. So every time you drink water, it just runs right through you. You have to pee constantly. You never have a good night's rest, because if you drink water before you go to bed, then you can't sleep because you're up 4 or 5 times in the night, and you wake up exhausted. It's just not worth it for you, because you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And you're not getting the benefits that you should be. You're not feeling as good as you should be. You're not looking as good as you could be. You're not performing as well as you could be. And then you just don't understand the benefits of it, and you're not experiencing how important it is. And so you just don't do it.
Yeah. It's like how vegans don't understand the importance of protein. Like if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, I love vegans. I just think that the perfect vegan diet is one with meat. That's all. And it's not and on top of that too, when we're talking about dehydration and stuff, it's like, if where you're getting your water from, like there's a lot of old pipes in a lot of cities, and a lot of pipes are not taken care of.
No, loaded with
A
lead,
lot of houses are
loaded
not
with
taken
heavy
care of.
metals, loaded with
You know,
microplastics sometimes if
Mhm.
they're made of a plastic pipe. I mean, that's like microplastics are a big, big problem. We could even do like a whole episode just on those alone. But you just got to know that on average, people today can easily consume upwards of like 5 grams of plastic per week. A
Yeah.
lot of that coming in from our bottles of water, from our pipes, from the containers we store our food in, from the microwavable packets we warm up our Hot Pockets in, all this stuff. By the way, for context, 5 grams of plastic is roughly around a credit card.
Okay.
That's insane. Like, how are people not talking about that? People are more freaked out over eating however many spiders per year on average people eat, like just in like food and restaurants and things like that. There's like something I heard as a kid, like the average person eats like 2-3 spiders a year or something like that.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah. But multiple credit cards a month is wild.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the credit cards, they don't creepy crawly. You know what I mean?
No, they just destroy your testosterone,
Yeah.
jack up your estrogen, and you feel like you're not supposed to feel.
Yeah, that's also pretty creepy.
They take away men's manhood, make women aggressive, and then nobody's happy.
Yeah, everyone's angry.
Exactly.
I wonder why there's so many mental health issues. It's like toxicity in the body is one of the reasons why.
And yes, proper water, and actually being hydrated can resolve a lot of these issues.
And the reality is, guys, is like, again, water is not the end all be all. It's just when the body is actually hydrated, then the body's hydrated, then it can do what a hydrated body can do.
You can take the most expensive car in the world, but if you don't have enough water in the radiator, you don't change your oil regularly enough, you don't have those fluids going through the engine, going through the transmission, keeping everything well timed and lubricated, that car eventually is going to perform worse than a Toyota Corolla. These Corolla's are great cars, but they're not a flipping Ferrari.
Yeah.
They're not a Bugatti. And you could turn a Bugatti and a Ferrari into a Toyota Corolla pretty freaking quick if you don't take care of it.
Yeah.
And one of the fastest ways to not take care of it is to not make sure that it's lubricated, that it's got lots of moisture, that the oil and the water are at the levels they're supposed to be and they're clean. Mm-hmm. Our body is no different. Our body is infinitely more advanced and way more flippant and important than any car ever could be because it's what we live in.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm getting a little bit.
No, for sure. So, we'll just we'll quickly move on to the how does the body hydrate properly, but not one, especially if you want to quickly touch on what I was kind of touching on earlier about the whole.
I'll touch it.
Okay. Anyways, about the whole how your body absorbs actual water, and then maybe water-based things differently, or
actual water as opposed to
soup,
fake water.
Soup, water-based food.
Yeah.
It's more it has a high
your
a smoothie.
Your body is going to absorb moisture from anything that it can, food, water, whatever. But like I was saying earlier, just the thing that we teach in the academy, you can't track that, you can't measure that. So if you are dehydrated, there's no way of knowing how many cucumbers you'll have to eat to rehydrate. There's no way of knowing how many oranges, how many watermelons, how many of anything that's not just pure water you're going to need to hydrate properly, because your body will focus on nutrients first and then water after. And if the water, if the fluid is a juice, if the fluid is a smoothie, there is lots of water in there, but there's also lots of nutrients in there. And so it gets digested as a food, not as water. The gastric acids are different. The enzymes are different. The bacterial profile of your gut is different as that fluid or food is being absorbed. And then water is a secondary thing. It'll get absorbed afterward, after all that is dealt with. So how much water you actually absorb is different depending on what you're consuming. And because we can't measure that, the average person can't track that, then we just don't focus on it. We don't teach that because it's hard, it's complicated, and health, for it to work, has to be simple. It has to be easy. And so just general rule of thumb, if you're drinking a liter of tea and 2 liters of water, you count the water towards what you hydrate from, not the tea, because that's different. It affects the body differently and you hydrate differently. Yeah.
And you don't, and again, as I was saying earlier, you don't use stomach acid to absorb water, but you need stomach acid to absorb food.
Exactly.
So,
but if your body detects a lot of nutrients that need to break down, then it's food, not fluid. It's not hydrating anymore. It's digesting. Those are different processes in the body.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's quickly move into, of course, how does the body hydrate properly?
Okay.
So first of all, we wanted to talk about how water doesn't actually hydrate the body. Minerals hydrate the body.
Exactly. So, like, for example, a very, very clear, easy breakdown of this process is something called the sodium potassium osmotic pump.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really that simple, I guess. But anyway, that is
No,
that
it's
is
kind of simple.
that is the process in which our cells open up, new water comes in, old water gets pulled out.
Yeah.
And we want this constant refresh, this constant cycle happening all the time, because our bodies inevitably are getting exposed to toxins. And most people today, because of constipation, because of dehydration, because of stress, because of malnutrition, because of an abundance of pollutants or toxicity in the body already, our elimination systems don't work like they're supposed to. They don't work properly. And so people have an abundance of toxicity in their fat cells, in their blood, in their organs, all throughout their body head to toe. And a lot of that stuff can get inside of our cells, and our cells are supposed to stay clean on the inside and the outside. So what we don't want is we don't want water that has heavy metals, has acid in it, has some kind of inflammatory agent or pollutant or toxin getting inside of our cells, because it's getting carried in by that water or all the extracellular fluids in our body, and then sitting in that cell, breaking it down faster than it's supposed to. And it gets polluted more and more and more. And it becomes this like little tiny microscopic swamp. Same thing that happens when we have water out in nature. If we have a stream that gets clogged up because of a beaver dam and no fresh water coming in, no cold water coming out, that river turns into a swamp. Think of the same idea that's happening inside of your body when the water is not getting recycled in our cells more frequently enough. Okay? So what happens is your body uses sodium and potassium to open up the cell membrane, take new water in, push the old water out, and then close the membrane again. And so you can have all the water that you want, but if you're deficient in both sodium and potassium, then that process won't happen properly. You won't take as much water in and as much old water out, and then the cell is not getting clean like it should.
Exactly.
Clean cells don't function well. They die early. They take up extra resources. They cause problems and issues and diseases and sicknesses all the time. And so water is one part of hydration, but it is an ingredient in the recipe. It's not the recipe itself. Somebody can drink a gallon of water a day, but if they're deficient in electrolytes, it'll just run right through them. And they'll actually end up being more dehydrated than they were before, because that extra water is going to cause their body to pee and sweat a lot more because it's not getting absorbed. And so it has to get eliminated.
Yeah.
And then along with that water, it's not just going to be pure H2O. It's going to be other stuff. It's always a soup that comes out of our body. It's always going to be minerals and vitamins and other kinds of nutrients and, some toxins and things that get released through our pores. And that's good. But we're going to be depleting ourselves because we're peeing more, we're sweating more. And then that's going to create this, feedback loop. And that's why most of the time when people drink water, they're like, well, I drink a lot of water all the time, but I still feel thirsty. My mouth is still dry. My lips still get cracked. I still don't have much energy, because they're drinking. They're not hydrating.
Exactly.
Because nobody said them that water is one part of it.
To have true hygiene in your body, you need to be hydrated.
Exactly.
And so, because, just to drive that point home a little bit more with what you were explaining, babe, is, the minerals are what actually make hydration possible, right? Because again, the water is there, but unless it's actually that intracellular fluid is replaced, right, with fresh intracellular fluid from us having what we need in our body, consuming what we need to, then we're not going to be hydrated. And so, because that's ultimately the catalyst, to make sure it happens, that is why minerals are what actually hydrate you.
Exactly.
So,
exactly, because they are the ingredients that your body uses to absorb the water. And just like with anything when it comes to nutrients, absorption is king. Doesn't matter how much protein you eat, matters how much of that protein your body can absorb and utilize. How much of it can it send to your muscles? Can it be used to make new cells? Can it send to your heart? You could eat 50 grams of it, 100 grams of it, 200 grams of it, but if you're not absorbing all of that, then there's still more work to do.
Yep. And a great thing to point out, I think a lot of people who hit the gym and things like this can, I've seen this situation before, where when one consumes a large amount of protein, they will have gut issues, right? There'll be a lot of gas paths and that. That's not how it's supposed to be. If you are actually consuming something properly, absorbing something properly, there shouldn't be pain or discomfort excess bloating, excess gas, all these things going on that actually shows a malfunction in uh, the absorption process. And that could be anywhere from, protein sourcing to the protein processing, to, the state of gut health a person is dealing with, et cetera, et cetera. And a similar thing happens, of course, with water, just like anything else. What we consume, it's like, where is it sourced from? How is it processed? How are our bodies responding to it? Are our bodies responding accordingly, like how they need to respond, or are they not? So the next point we wanted to talk about is how, in order for the body to hydrate properly, of course, water needs to be free of harmful contaminants. So that one's pretty obvious. Pretty much
I think you covered
everyone.
that pretty well,
Yeah.
actually. But just the moral of the story,
Yeah. Filter your water.
the more polluted your body becomes, the more toxic your body becomes, the less it will work.
Yep.
And the more it will have to fight and strain and try and stress just to get basic normal functions done.
Mm-hmm.
The more toxic you become, the harder your organs have to work, the less efficient your digestive system becomes, the harder your immune system has to go just to get you to not get sick from easy things that it should normally be able to handle no problem because of those toxins. Because one of the biggest things that affects bodily function is an abundance of toxicity in the body. The more toxins that you have, the more dysfunction that we have, the sicker the body becomes.
Absolutely. So, last but not least, I think we can talk about the electrostatic charge and just the importance, again, of how we were saying with water. Yes, the sourcing, how it's processed. So, for example, it's not packaged in a plastic bottle, et cetera, et cetera. But also,
microplastics are not good for your female and male parts, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just leave it there.
But the other element to this too that a lot of people don't talk about is how well water is being utilized. Again, it's like just how we understand that food, some people can utilize and, break down, foods better than others, right? And usually people who have trouble with that, they have something going on. It's a similar idea with water. So if your body is not utilizing the water that you're drinking, there's a reason why. There's a reason why, you're drinking a lot of water and you're not getting hydrated.
Exactly.
There is a reason why. And so part of that.
We have not ever worked with one person that started to listen to our advice on hydration, or we started to monitor their electrolyte levels, where we changed the quality of the drinking water. We got them a better filter. We got them set up on an ionizer. And they have not got more hydrated from that. We know that they got more hydrated because their dehydration symptoms went away.
Yeah, because they got hydrated, because their symptoms were due from dehydration.
And if those symptoms went away, then by default, that means that they had to be more hydrated.
Yes, exactly.
And then so just for all of our lovely, lovely listeners, before we go into the next segment of our show, just to give everybody like some practical tips, like a good starting point.
We didn't go over the electrostatic charge part.
Oh, yeah.
So just, a really great, example of this is even how Justin was explaining the sodium potassium pump, because part of the element of how water has to have minerals, it has to have a charge to it as well.
Exactly. If it doesn't have that charge, then it's dead. And this is a concept that we see all the time when we do live blood morphology, for example. When a person doesn't have good viscosity of their blood, when their blood starts to get thick, probably due to dehydration, we talk about 16% of your blood volume can go down. When a person's blood starts to get thicker and they don't digest their proteins well, one of the things that can happen is called erythrocyte aggregation. And this is when your blood cells, your red blood cells, start to coagulate together. They start to stick and clump up and form these big, huge masses. And that's really, really bad, because the surface of our red blood cells are supposed to be what delivers the nutrients, delivers the energy, delivers the information as the blood cells traveling through our body, as it's circulating through us. And when it gets in this big, massive clump, all the blood cells in the middle don't really get to do much. And the ones on the outside, only the edges of those blood cells actually get to deliver anything out through the blood vessels. Water molecules can form similar shapes. They can also aggregate and they can cluster together when the electrostatic charge in that water goes down because of a lack of minerals or because it's just been a long, long time since that water was connected to some sort of electrical charge like the earth or an ionizer or some kind of an underwater geyser or anything else like that. Okay. And once that electricity goes away, those molecules start to go closer and closer together because they don't have that electrostatic charge keeping them separated anymore. And when they're not separated and they bundle up, it is much harder for your body to absorb water because only a certain amount of water molecules can be absorbed through a cell at any given time or pass through your stomach at any given time. And the smaller and smaller and smaller those molecule clusters become, the faster the water gets absorbed for less work, less calories.
So less clumped together they are.
So,
right?
For example, something that people might have heard before is that there are nutritionists out there. They tend to have a more bodybuilding focus, and they will say that one of the ways people can burn excess calories is by drinking ice cold water. That works because water can only be absorbed through the stomach once it's reached a certain temperature. And if it's really, really, really cold, your body will actually will burn energy and will create heat in the stomach to warm up that water so it can then be absorbed. Okay? One of the reasons why that happens is because as water heats up, similarly to how it separates when there's a good electrostatic charge in there, the water molecule clusters break up more and more and more, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually it turns into steam.
Yeah.
And as that water heats up, it becomes smaller, and then it can pass through the stomach lining easier. The practical example of what we're talking about is when most people drink water, they could, have water sloshing around in their stomach for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes, depending on how much they drink or the quality of it or just, whatever. But if they swap over to ionized water, for example, and they get a better filter and they make sure that their minerals are on point inside their body because they've tracked it, they've measured it, we'll have people drink a whole liter like this, and in 5 minutes, their stomach's totally empty and they can go jump on a trampoline because the water is being absorbed much faster. So the faster the water can be absorbed, the better hydrated you can be from it because your body doesn't have to work as hard to get the good stuff out of it. That's what it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I know it makes sense to you.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I think you did a great job. Okay, let's move to why don't we just quickly go over some client stories?
Yeah, well, let's finish off with that. Let's go over like a bit of a protocol first. Just
okay.
So for everyone watching live, basically, and this is taken straight from our Holistic Clarity course. It's the thing that we get all of our clients to go through when they first join the academy. Water is a very, very important part of our first phase of RISE called Regulate. And just to start everybody off, if you can, at the minimum, get to about half an ounce of water per pound of healthy body weight, you're making sure you're regularly taking Celtic sea salt and you're eating sodium-rich foods. Like everybody thinks sodium-rich foods, they think of like banana. For example, potatoes have much more potassium in there than bananas do. Leafy greens, avocados. You can do a very quick Google search and you can find lots of different whole foods that are rich in potassium. But if you eat lots of potassium-rich foods day to day, you take Celtic sea salt to get your sodium. A good place to start for anybody who's normal when it comes to sodium absorption. So like not hypertensive people, not people that have some kind of a predisposition to high blood pressure. Those are different situations. And again, this is like not medical advice.
No,
this is not
educational purposes. It's all vague. It's
this is not a specific recommendation that you need today. This is a good starting point. It's a good reference to build from. Okay. But half an ounce of water per pound of healthy body weight. Celtic sea salt every day. A good goal to aim for would maybe be around an extra teaspoon worth of Celtic sea salt, because that should be around 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Most people need anywhere from about 3,000 to 8,000 milligrams of sodium a day, depending on activity level, depending on how much they sweat, depending on lifestyle, size, all those things. And then focusing on potassium-rich foods. Try to eat something high in potassium every meal. If you do that for 3 days, a week, a month, you will notice that you're hydrated better. You're absorbing more of the water you're drinking. And if you can find yourself the best filter you can get access to, we love activated carbon filters, and get your hands on an ionizer, a really high quality medical grade water ionizer, then you are going to be a completely different person than you were just a few weeks ago. So that's a good reference point, a good place to start. If you guys have questions on that, you need more help, comment down below. If you want some kind of specific recommendations for you, go to our website, ReVitalizedAcademy.com, fill out an application form, And somebody from our team will get back to you. We'll give you actual recommendations based on what you're going through right now, just some blanket statement. But yeah, if you don't know where to start, that's where to start. If you don't know how to do it on your own, that's exactly what we're here for. It's what we do with people. We teach them all this stuff. This is literally what we do day in and day out.
Yep.
But that is your effort. That's where you start, and you build from there.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Right. Okay, why don't we go over some of our stories?
Yeah. Well, you've had Laura's dad is a great option.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's really cool.
I actually, let me see if I can find the most recent stuff, because he had so many benefits. That happened. And
while you're looking that up, there is one story I can talk about that I think a lot of our audience, a lot of our viewers will resonate with.
Okay, I found it, by the way.
And this person shall remain nameless because we did not get permission to share this story, so we're not going to say who it was. But there was maybe about like 6-7 years ago. My dad and I, we went to go to a client's house because they invited their friend over to come and sit down with us because she was going through some really hard times. I was going to say mental anguish, I think it's a good word to describe it. A lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of really chaotic things going on in her life. And then just because of the state of her mind, she also had like an extra, 60, 70, 80 pounds to lose, aches and pains, super tired and confused all the time, couldn't think straight. And one of the things that we found out sitting down with this woman was that, like, on average, she'd maybe drink like 2 liters of water a week, 4 liters max, right? And so one of the things we instantaneously realized is that this woman is very clearly dehydrated because there's no way that's enough water for her body weight. Just for any adult, 2 liters a week is not enough. That's insane. The fact that she's, still functioning at all is a miracle.
Yeah.
And so we got her to drink a lot of water. So my dad was sitting down with her, he was talking with her, and I would go to our client's kitchen because they had 9 at the time. And so we just, like, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd just go bring her fresh glass, over and over and over. And we got this woman to drink liters of water over the course of an hour. So we well exceeded her weekly amount that her body was conditioned to. And keep in mind, she was a highly, highly emotional woman just because of the state that her mind was in.
Yeah.
Like, she was not very stable at all. Nothing against her. I'm not saying that like that. It's just, she was in a very, like, emotionally unstable spot. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we got her to drink liters of water. And what most people are shocked by when I say this is that she didn't have to pee for like 4 hours afterward. Not at all. Like, she didn't just hold it. She didn't have to pee because the way that the ionized water works and the way that we were giving her the salt and we're making sure that she's actually absorbing the water, she was actually absorbing water.
Yeah, she was like a cactus.
She was a freaking cactus, a sponge, and a Campbell combined. And she didn't have to pee for 4 hours. And then after that, it's not like all of a sudden she just had like this miraculous like dam opening up. She had to pee 20 times. She just was peeing a normal amount.
Yeah.
But she had to pee for 4 hours after drinking liters of water over the course of 1 hour. And that just goes to show the difference in drinking water and hydrating properly.
Exactly. Actually absorbing.
And by the way, she felt way better.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Her mind was different. Her body felt different. She had so much energy. She was a totally different person by the time we were done sitting down with her. And just because we got her hydrated.
And again, it's just hydration is just that important. And when you get that resolved, amazing things happen.
Absolutely.
Like when someone is missing such an important nutrient and they finally are nourished with that nutrient, and again, water is a nutrient, right? When they finally have that, then amazing things happen, right?
Things happen.
So some of the things that happen, and this was just from one of our clients' fathers, it's just, mentioned. And he really didn't do much with this. He mostly just made sure, like follow the specific way that
Laura kind of was the drill sergeant in this one. She was the one that was busting his butt. She didn't really have to do much work. She
took care of it. Yeah. but anyways, we got him hydrated. So 1, sore liver that comes and goes every month. Did 2 ultrasounds because of this, not sore anymore. 2, sore left arm. He worked hard lifting heavy rocks in late September. The left arm had been sore ever since. Could not use his bicep for 3 months. Pain gone after 4 days into this journey. Number 3, both his shoulders were sore for a year. When he would do push-ups, felt like a knife in his left one. Pain gone after 6 weeks. Feels back to normal. How many push-ups do you say he can do now?
He came up to me at church a few weeks ago and he was bragging that he did 50.
Yeah, that's amazing. And especially when it's like you were hit with such a sharp pain where you can't even do one, and now you can do 50, and you're like an older gentleman too. Like that's an amazing thing for sure.
It's awesome. And if that doesn't make sense to people, try going down a slip and slide that doesn't have any water on it. It's going to feel hard, anything to move or grind or scratch. It's like when there's lots of friction in the body with our joints, with our muscles, with our tendons, with all of our connective tissue, our muscle fascia scraping against our muscles itself, because they're dehydrated, our muscles. Like it doesn't feel good. That causes pains. But when you take a slip and slide, you rub a bunch of water all on that thing, get it all nice and slippery. It's the funnest day of summer. It's awesome.
Exactly. 4, he fell on a blunt, hard object in the middle of his chest in June 2020, had a bruised lung. His chest bone in the middle never healed properly, always sore, hurts when he would cough or sneeze. The doctor said it will be like that for the rest of his life. When he coughs and sneezes now, no symptoms. This is 3 months into the journey. 5, do you want me to keep going? Yeah. 5, hands have been abnormally cold for 8 years, especially in winter. He talked to my doctor about this and said it was just age. His hands feel normal for the first time in 8 years. Again, hydration is just that important for the body.
Well, okay. The fluid that your blood is made of, blood plasma, is like 90 to 99% water. And if the water goes down, the blood plasma gets thick. The blood doesn't circulate, doesn't get down to the hands. If there's no blood flow, there's no heat. Like, of course, people get cold hands and feet all the time because their circulation sucks because they're dehydrated.
Exactly. And I think it's just the reality is no matter what specialist or expert you go to or anything like this, they actually don't have the time or the system to check all these little things, to see where your diet's at, see where your water's at, see where your exercise is at, like not truly. And they only speak to you, every 6 months to a year, some places even worse. But when you have someone like a coach or a community or a place where you can, where you can have like those resources and ask those simple questions and have things checked, then and helps give you what you need to succeed. Because, the last thing you want is something as simplistic like not being hydrated and you don't know better, right? And, just be told for years and years that you're just going to be stuck like this.
Totally.
And it's super quick. I'll just go through a few more. 6, he hurt his right foot during church renovations in 2021. The sore spot keeps coming back every month for about a day or two, just enough to annoy him and to remind him it is still there. The sore spot on his foot has not shown its face for the past 3 months, and a bunch of other things. But that's just one person.
Well, not just that. Also, this really comes to mind is Mark.
Yeah.
Kidney stones. I mean, like this guy used to get kidney stones
2 to 3 times
a month.
That's intense.
Years. And since he's been working with us, since him and his wife have been working with us, and we got him hydrated. We changed up his diet. We got his body cleaning itself again. We got him exercising, moving more. And like, it's honestly not even really that crazy changes. Like he's got the same work, lives in the same home. He's got the same daily routine for the most part, but just getting his body hydrated. We talked about earlier, 90% of kidney function is needed for ideas. You need to be hydrated to have 90% of your kidneys function properly. He got hydrated, and he hasn't had kidney stones for, I got to double check with Brandy, I think like probably close to 8 months to a year, give or take. Like not one. I mean,
that was for a long time he was dealing with that too.
Kidney stones aren't something that every single person goes through, but if you ever have gone through them before, you know how much they suck. And what if your kidney stones were there just because your kidneys got dehydrated? They couldn't properly flush this solid waste, the oxalate, the calcium, the different things that form these stones. It couldn't flush them in time, and so they built up into this mass. And then you're trying to push a solid mass through a tube designed for fluid. That's gonna hurt. But what if your kidneys getting more hydrated and flushing themselves properly and just functioning better overall? Acid levels getting down, mineral levels going up. What if that fixed the problem?
Yep.
Again, this is not medical advice.
And
We're
nope,
not
it is not. It
doctors.
is educational.
We're just
Yep.
sharing stories, talking about best practices, and sharing some things that
Yep.
can do some good for some people in our lives. But it's worth a look at.
Yep.
It's worth a look at.
Exactly. We're just a bunch of good-looking people on here on YouTube, different places, just having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's like a campfire.
Some of us better than others looking.
And again, back to the whole kidney thing. If you remember what I said earlier, right? 90% of kidney function or wellness, right? People are different. Depends on adequate hydration.
That's
So,
wild.
gee, I wonder if it's important.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
all right. Well, Deputy Drew, what do you think? Are we coming up on the time? Do we got to go over to the different segment yet? Do we have some questions? Do we have a game show? What are we doing, buddy?
Yeah, it'll definitely be a game show this time around.
Ooh.
I'm
we
going
need
to.
we need to have a theme song for this.
We do need to have a theme song for this. That would be sweet.
No,
We'll definitely get
it's game
something that
show.
works.
no, you need to
Not that one.
copyright
We'll get something. We'll get something back.
problems. Anyways, keep going, Drew.
All right. So I'm going to ask you guys a question,
Okay.
and you guys are going to guess how many people in this country, or one of them is in America. So how many people in Canada do this specific thing?
Okay.
It's going to be percentage based.
Okay.
And it's all going to be surrounded around basically what we talked about today.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh, we could call this game show the Law of Averages. No, that's
Law of averages?
I mean, we could.
We'll workshop.
We got to brainstorm a name.
Okay.
for it.
All right. We'll
But that's
workshop
cool.
it. Anyways.
We'll workshop.
Okay.
All right.
What's the
All
first
right.
question?
Okay. How many Canadians drink the doctor recommended amount of water per day?
Oh.
And just to be clear, the doctor recommended
Is
amount
it
of water is 8 glasses.
Right? Yeah. Okay. That okay. Anyways, like 10, 15.
What percentage? Can we ask questions? Can we get hints?
No, let's just get through it. My guess is 10, 15%.
10, 15%.
Like of people actually.
I'll
drink
say,
that.
you know what? I'll have a little bit of faith in people. I'm gonna go 30%.
Yeah, you guys didn't have enough faith in Canadians. Apparently, it's 44%.
Really?
Hey!
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
That's great.
better.
At least 44% of people are drinking at least 8 glasses a day. That's
okay,
fantastic.
all right. I mean,
That's
I
still
would
not
love-
enough.
Nope.
But that's
I would
great.
love if we could get a chart to see where the percentage starts to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I think if it's the actual amount that they should be drinking, it's probably more around the 5% mark.
Yeah.
That's
Probably.
hilarious.
Okay. All right. That's not bad. I mean, technically, I was closer.
Technically,
Not that it's
technically you won
competition,
that. Yeah.
but
Everything's a
if it was a
competition.
competition, if there was going to be a winner,
Right.
that winner would be me.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
And
So,
technically, if there was a winner, you both lost. All right.
nobody asked you.
The, ne-
so-
the next one is going to be an American one because it was a lot easier to find a statistic on this one.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
What percentage of Americans have consumed fast food in the last year?
What percentage of Americans
90%.
in the last year? Yeah, I'd say at least 90%. I'm locking in 90%.
Is 95% of Americans.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say 90 or like
Holy.
definitely higher. Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy. So
No, that's not that crazy. That
that's-
makes sense.
No, but that's like what? Like 300 million people, basically? A little over 300 million people? That's wild. Wow. We got some work to do.
It's really sad. It's really sad.
We got some work.
But yeah, it does mean that we have a large demographic that we can talk to for sure.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
A better way.
Yeah, no doubt.
You could have fast
All
food
right.
without driving to go get it.
What exactly? What percentage of people eat the doctor recommended amount of vegetables per day?
Oh my god, I want to almost
Okay,
say
if-
like
if-
2%.
There's a
water
Canadian
was
one. There's a
44%.
Canadian answer, and an American answer.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
let's start with Canada.
Here, is it a big difference?
It's by 10%.
Okay.
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 10%. Sorry, excuse me. So for
I'm gonna say
Canada,
like 20%.
I was gonna say that too.
Okay, well, if you're gonna say
Okay,
20%,
no, I'm gonna say 30.
if you're gonna say 30, okay,
Mhm.
I'll go 15.
Okay, and
That's for
then
Canadians?
yeah, for Canadians, and then for Americans, I'll say 20.
Ooh,
I don't
How,
know.
for
Which one would be
Americans,
more?
I'm guessing. I'm not gonna guess a percentage. I'm guessing more. Sorry, less. No. More Americans eat their vegetables than Canadians do.
I was thinking that
Okay.
too. So I'll say 40. Because I said 30%, right?
Yeah.
For Canadians. Okay. Yeah, I'll go with about 40.
That's
40%.
way too high.
Maybe.
We gotta hold out faith.
But we're talking about.
We gotta hold out faith.
We're
The
talking about
carnivores haven't taken over
We're
that
talking
much.
about the guidelines. The guidelines for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Dietary guidelines. So
All right,
that's not
okay.
setting the bar that high.
Okay, 15% for Canadians, and more Americans eat vegetables than Canadians do.
And Al, you said 30 and 40?
Yeah.
Okay, it is 21% of Canadians,
Ah,
and Americans is lower.
what?
I wasn't
10% of
10% of
Americans.
Americans eat their daily recommended amount of vegetables?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my
Okay, well,
God.
that's a win for Canada.
It's a win for Canada. That's what this
20%
whole
isn't
game
really
is
much of
about.
a win,
Yeah,
but
no,
holy.
wow, that's crazy. I think I wanted to believe.
We gotta work
Yeah,
hard for it.
honestly, it's better than America, but it's still pretty sad.
So low.
That's
People
crazy.
have
Considering,
no idea what they're
honestly,
missing
The
out on.
doctor recommended amount of vegetables is probably not very high either.
I'm pretty sure it's like
what, 4 servings?
one serving a day, I think.
We'd have to double check.
Jeez,
Anyways,
yeah.
anyways.
But baby, you know what? That's just
What?
because they haven't tried any of your recipes yet.
Oh,
If they
fair
knew how
enough.
good vegetables could taste, they would eat them like crazy. They'd be borderline cows.
Exactly. Let's do the inverse of that.
They'd be people-shaped cows with how much vegetables they eat.
We'll do the inverse of that question. It does relate to cows. How
That's
many
so funny.
people in Canada eat meat per week? So at least once per week they eat meat.
Oh gosh, I would say majority.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
We're looking at percentage.
I'm gonna
Percentage,
say 70.
yeah.
I'm gonna say 70%.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it can't be
70%.
too high because of the
That
like.
sounds right to me.
There's a lot of people dealing with financial stuff
Yeah,
and
that's true.
everything, so
That's true.
I didn't want to hit it too high. But maybe
Okay,
60.
you go 70, I go 60.
Oh man, I was gonna say 60, 70, but sure.
Okay.
What is it?
All right. So it's 87%.
Ooh!
Oh, interesting.
Dang.
No. We'd both be wrong.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wow.
That was a bigger swing than I thought too. And actually we're way higher than the average country.
Really?
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Canadians
cool.
are meat eaters.
Nice.
100%.
Interesting.
As we
The
should
more
be.
you know, the more you know.
Another one for
Exactly.
good old Canada.
All right. This is going to be the biggest question of the day. And it
Okay.
has
Biggest question.
almost nothing to do with the episode. And it's not really on brand either,
Perfect.
but it's a really funny question.
Okay.
How many chickens are estimated to be in the world right now?
Oh, like across the world, like the whole planet. Okay, but hold on a second though, because how are they getting these estimations? Because
It's
you got to
also
imagine
so many die at one time too.
but you got to imagine there's got to be countries out there that don't track this stuff. So how? So
Okay.
it's.
I'm gonna
Oh,
say.
this is
I'm
such
gonna
a good
say.
question. Hold on. Wait.
Wow.
No, because like it's the world, but it's not the whole world because not every country or place in the world would track this. So it's only countries that are technologically advanced enough or that care about this stuff enough to track their chickens, right? So that changes the question. How many chickens are in the whole world?
I think it's double digits in the millions.
What country did this study? What country is making this estimation?
It's probably U.S.
Okay, I'm assuming it was the U.S. If it was the U.S., what we have to assume that they're probably overshooting it because Americans do love chicken.
Oh. Okay,
If Americans love chicken,
but because another thing to keep in mind too is how like chickens like have a short lifespan, right? So you know how many at one time, right? So I'm gonna guess 40 mil.
40? No way. There's got to be 40 million just in the States.
Well, again,
That's
I was
way
thinking,
too low.
Okay, fine. Dang. All right, I'll say 100.
Okay. I'm gonna guess it's definitely got to be in the billions.
I found a website that's just about chicken statistics worldwide.
Okay.
One of the greatest websites I've ever seen.
Why does that website exist? Okay, I'm gonna say 3 billion chicken. 3 billion.
3 billion chickens.
3 billion chickens strong.
Across the world.
So,
Yep.
so United States, by the way, is actually the leader in chicken population.
That makes
See?
sense.
I told you. Americans love their chicken. I called it.
I didn't doubt that, babe. But keep going, Drew.
Well, just in case one of them did.
Just in the United States alone, 9.2 billion.
What?
Whoa!
Oh my
That was my
Okay.
Clearly, I don't love chicken that much.
All right,
That
9.2
was way
billion just in the
Just
US.
in America.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to take another answer?
Yes.
Oh my
okay.
God.
I'm going to do a crazy statement. I'm going to say Americans love chicken so much and they do things so big that there is 20 billion chickens in the world and America has half of them.
He just said that in America there's like
There's
almost
9 billion.
10.
So I'm saying between the rest of the world there's another 10 billion.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll go 25.
25 billion.
25. All right. And the answer is 34.4 billion
Oh, I
chickens.
guess I was closer.
Holy. So America has, I was
to be
totally
honest-
kidding. America has 1/3 of the world's chickens. That's great. Everyone's
That
talking about how much
is
oil they have.
crazy.
Are-
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about their chicken monopoly.
Wow. You know what? It's funny too because when you
Wow.
said 20, I was actually gonna say 40 billion worldwide. You said 20, I was gonna say 40.
That's crazy.
For all we know, that's actually not that far fetched because stats can
And
only
again,
say so much.
these are just the countries that measure their chickens.
Exactly.
What
So,
about all the countries that have chickens just naturally, or that have chickens that graze on fields and not fields on roofs? What about the roof chickens? That could be like a whole other 10 million right there.
what
that's
about
wild.
the sewer chickens?
Those are a thing.
What about the forest chickens and the jungle chickens and the water chickens
Yeah, for sure.
and the tree chickens?
America has 1 out of every 3 chickens on the
Wow,
planet.
that's incredible.
That
All
is
right.
crazy.
Well,
That's an accomplishment. That right
this-
there.
yeah.
That's a country of abundance.
Great job, America. We're
Wow.
proud of you. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, this has been the ReVitalized Podcast.
Yes. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
all
for
for
joining in.
watching, for tuning in.
Mhm.
Thank you guys for watching in live. We love every one of you guys.
Mhm.
Thank you again to all of our donors, everybody
Yes.
who gave and donated to make this show happen.
Mhm.
We are super grateful for each one of you guys. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, you learned some stuff about hydration.
Mhm.
And if you did, like the video. If you didn't, dislike the video. Share it with your mom, your uncle.
Your
share
dad.
share it with your neighbor next door. Share it with the guy that goes to your church that you're not super familiar with. Just share it. It's a talking point. Hey,
Yeah.
you wanna watch this podcast with me together by ourselves in a coffee shop? That'd get me interested.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Anyways, yeah. Share.
Just pick a stranger and watch our podcast with them. That's all I'm saying. It's not that weird. Trust me. Once you try it 2 or 3 times, it'll feel normal and you'll get used to it.
Yeah, strangers are just friends you haven't met yet.
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
And what better way to bond with a stranger than to talk about water and chickens?
Yeah, something.
Like
That's a perfectly good point. On top of this too, just remember, guys, ask as many questions as you'd like. We love your
Mhm.
questions, and we want to, help as many people as possible. That's why we're
Exactly.
doing the whole Revitalize Our World thing.
exactly.
But yeah, well, we hope you guys have the most amazing night, and stay classy, San Diego.
What if they're not in San Diego? Are they still allowed to be classy?
Yes, definitely.